How much better do you think than even 10, 20 years ago? Do you think the bands are at negotiating with with the pipeline companies? And I don't mean just better as getting a a better deal for them, but also moving these projects forward for the employment of their people and everything. How much advancement do you think has been made?
Oh, there's some communities that are, especially through the pipeline. I know a few communities that openly admitted that they're working with these industries to better, because no matter what, it's coming through, and they either get a piece of the pie or they just watch it go by.
Hmm.
And they're getting involved from the infrastructure right to the decision of how things are being set up. So the employment rate is quite high in some of these communities, and then there's some communities have zero unemployment rate. So again, depending on on where that pipeline is going through at a
Yeah,
certain section, so there's an offset to it too, right?
yeah. I sometimes wonder, well, not sometimes, I've mentioned this to you several times that, and the opposition to something like a pipeline gets quite a bit of media coverage. I've
Hmm.
noticed and it gets quite thorough. They'll do a whole spot on it. It'll be a half-hour show
Hmm.
that they'll dig into it. I've never heard, and I may be wrong. Now, please send me the ones that show that I'm wrong. But I've never heard that sort of in depth for the bands that are supporting it, that are saying, no, our community is in talks with them. It might be a little, a 30-second clip, but
Hmm.
in depth of what it is actually bringing to the community, how the negotiations have gone. Why, why do you think that is? If you were to guess, why does that? Why does sort of the opposition get so much coverage? Which is, I mean, they have every right to oppose it, of course.
Hmm.
But why is there so much coverage when you have, maybe five bands that are against it, and
Hmm.
you've got 30 that are saying yes?
Hmm.
Why don't you think those 30 get just even a little more coverage?
Well, again, news, the only way you're going to have news and provide news to people that want interest is usually the negative side of it.
Yeah.
There's definitely two sides to the story, and for me, when I see that, especially individuals that definitely have that ability to grab that attention, and it's usually the louder they scream, the louder they make noise, and when they speak on behalf of our nation, it's really what kind of like for me, I'll give you an example of when the 2010 Olympics came,
Hmm.
and they were talking about the Sea to Sky Highway, and the War Society, they called themselves, got up and took the Olympic flag off the in Vancouver here, and they said they were doing it for honoring an elder, and in reality, it was really honoring themselves because they were bringing the attention to them. It was negative, it wasn't positive, even though they spun it off as a positive. It really was the attention was going back to their society. So
Hmm.
again, it's how you look at what directions and organizations are going in that way. And it's changed since then. And definitely there's a lot of people who are opposed to the pipeline based on is it going to benefit them individually? Is it going to benefit the area? So is it something that's getting laid down and been through there? So I think there needs to be a lot of uh, group discussions. When you build a partnership in anything, you have to build that relationship. And sometimes I think, from the government's view, they think they've done it by consulting certain nations or certain leaders, or those leaders don't communicate to their communities. And I
Yeah.
think that's where the breakdown is. I think it really needs to be brought from the grassroots up versus from the top down. So that's where I see the changes that need to be. When I was a leader, I know that was something that in my community you had to communicate with the community before you even did anything. So sometimes that gets missed on some of the opportunities because there's always a short timeline to the decisions they have to make. And in the long run it will pay off, but in the short term they need to go back into their communities to share that information, what's coming down.
Yeah.